Welcome to our first panel focused on the multifamily sector of commercial real estate. This panel is sponsored by District Capital Detroit and C.E. Gleason Constructors. Our first panelist, Sam Beznos of Beztac Companies, is the Chief Executive Officer managing nationwide apartment and retail portfolio. If you want to talk, I would just ask that you please step outside. Managing retail portfolios and leading the acquisitions and development team with expertise in land development, finance, and strategic partner. Let's welcome Sam Beznos. David Cohen is president and CEO of ARCO with a decade of experience in residential, commercial, and industrial real estate. He excels in urban revitalization, development, construction, property management, and brokerage. Let's welcome David Cohen. Charles Gleason, number 2, CEO Gleason Constructors, president and CEO, headquartered in Troy with offices in Austin, Texas, Charlotte, North Carolina, Delray Beach, Florida. Gleason Constructors specializes in industrial, commercial, retail, having built more than 40 million square feet since 1990. Let's welcome Charles. Our next panelist is celebrating 50 years, an incredible milestone for Sing Development, a family-owned real estate company since 1973, specializing in diverse projects, residential, senior living, multifamily, in commercial real estate. Let's welcome Saab Grewal. Kevin Kovacevic of District Capital Detroit is the founder. With his extensive mortgage banking experience and a commercial real estate background, he prioritizes client needs and offers innovative solutions. Let's welcome Kevin to the stage. And our moderator is actually an owner-operator of multifamily units, 7,000 to be exact, on his way to 20,000 over the next few years. It's very unique for us to have an owner-operator serve as our moderator, but I hope that lends to a robust and healthy discussion on multifamily. Gideon Pfeffer, I'll let you take it from here.
Thanks, Derek. Good morning, everybody. How's everybody doing so far? First panel? Best panel, maybe? I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. I like to know the crowd, right, so we can all understand who's here. How many of us do some sort of business that pertains to multifamily? Okay, it looks like almost everybody. Keep your hands up if you are in construction for multifamily. All right, put your hands up. Put your hands up if you own multifamily as an owner-operator. Okay, put your hands down. Put your hands up if you're a lender multifamily. I'm very sorry for you. Which brings me to our opening. I think that I noticed that District Capital is a sponsor of this panel, so thank you, Kevin, for that. And I thought maybe you could open up. Kevin, you're an owner-operator also, but you also own District Capital that does a ton of lending. And gosh, what a fun environment you must be navigating today. You want to tell me about your take on the market, and maybe going off of what Derek shared with us, what's the most exciting or not so exciting thing that's going on in your world today?
Sure. I appreciate the intro. As an owner-operator of multifamily, we've got about 5,000 apartment units, predominantly in Michigan and in Georgia. So I want to come at you from an ownership standpoint, but also I own a firm that's got offices in Detroit, Cleveland, and Indianapolis that we specialize in debt. So we're looking for permanent debt in all aspects of commercial real estate, but predominantly multifamily. So I can give you a perspective of what I'm seeing from two different seats. The first thing is, despite what I might say on this panel today, I am long and I am bullish on multifamily from a long-term perspective. There's a lot of good things happening in multifamily right now. I think that we're still grossly undersupplied with housing, both on the affordable and traditional side. Construction is not happening at the pace that it's happened historically, so we're not adding to that supply currently. So there's some really nice things happening from a fundamental standpoint. We are seeing a price gap between ownership and rent that's never been seen before. So to own is very expensive. So we've got renters that are staying renters for a very long time. And then we've got a lot of money on the sidelines, a lot of dry powder that's waiting to jump and buy into multifamily that's going to help prop up values for the long term. However, on the flip side, there are some things happening in the space that I think raise some concerns. You know, we've got do a lot of debt in the multifamily space, and Fannie Mae, as you guys know, is the largest provider of multifamily financing in the world. They have the closest thing to a crystal ball that anyone's going to have in this space. No appraiser, no owner has the amount of data and information that Fannie Mae has. Fannie Mae recently started to pull some things back. They've got certain levers they can pull that are designed to be conservative. One of the things that they did when interest rates shot up was they introduced a 35-year amortization to underwriting. You can underwrite your deal to a 35-year am as long as you meet your 125 debt cover on that artificial 35-year amortization, you could hold your proceeds. Fantastic. 2 weeks ago, gone. It's shut off. No more deals at 35-year am underwritten. That's sign number one. Your deals are now going to be lower levered. Sign number two is that Fannie Mae, and this just happened to me personally a couple days ago, so this is fresh, new information that probably hasn't even hit the street yet. We operate with a credit facility with Fannie Mae, which means we pool all of our assets that we own together. It gives you better leverage. It gives you better underwriting standards. It gives you all these features that Fannie Mae looks at and says, wow, we really want to lend to these guys. They've put their deals together in a way that are conservative. We've used that model to acquire properties in the last few years that essentially allows us to tap into the equity that sits on the credit facility lines. As of Tuesday, that credit facility has been shut down. This is a national, across the board. Our portfolio couldn't be healthier. We're in the Midwest, where it's safe, it's steady, rents are rising, we're doing the right thing, we're not over-levered, doesn't matter. They see impairments that are starting to happen in the market. So those impairments might be on the coast, it might be in the Sun Belt, but it's going to affect everybody at some point. And we're getting affected today. We're about to buy a deal right now in Kansas City. That deal might be dead. And so these things that Fannie Mae has control over and the things that they're doing today are signs that there are some things to come. And let's not turn a blind eye to the fact that we know there are a lot of deals out there that were purchased in 20, 21, and early 22 at ridiculously high prices with very high leverage with floating rate debt. That is not a combination for things that are going to go the right way right now. Your interest rates run away from you. Interest rate caps that were being purchased are expiring. There's a lot of deals out there that are on the brink of becoming disastrous. What happens to those? Are they going to be forced sales? Are there equity in the sidelines that are come in and swoop in and take it over? We don't know.
I appreciate that insight. Part of my job is to pop around a little bit so we hear from all the other moderators, and I don't want the audience to start crying and leaving.
I told you I was long. I'm still long and bullish, despite what I say.
But he's long and bullish on multifamily. I'm just kidding. I think that you bring up a lot of good points. The reality that all of us in multifamily are dealing with. I always love to come to conferences in good times and and also challenging times because I get validation, right? I get validation that okay, the stuff that we're dealing with in our office isn't unique just to GSH, right? It's stuff that we're all dealing with. So going off of the buy an existing model that Fannie Mae often finances, we have a few great developers and development firms that have been around for a long time, right? Sam, Saab, David, you guys, what's your experience with interest rates right now? We'll start with Sam, and what are some of the challenges that you're seeing or some of the successes that you're seeing today?
Well, here we go. On the new construction front, I mean, it's very challenging. We're really getting whacked in all directions to make deals feasible to build today. I mean, specifically to answer your question on interest rates, I mean, we have projects under construction today that will likely need additional capital because the interest reserves are not sufficiently capitalized given the rapid jump in floating rate interest rate debt. Yeah. So, I mean, that's certainly a challenge right now. I mean, we saw rates basically double, and, if you took the last 5 years, the interest rates helped bail out many projects under construction because we had a lot of savings because rates stayed so low for so long. So now you're seeing the reverse. And as you look at new deals, and we have new deals that we're looking to pull the trigger on potentially this year and next, now your costs are just double what they were before. Plus, the banks are a little bit more sensitive to scrutinizing the interest reserve, but also in their overall underwriting standard, which has changed primarily because of the debt market. Because banks typically look at what the takeout mortgage would look like. So there's just a lot coming at you as a developer to try to build new projects today with rise of construction, interest rates, operating costs, all these inflationary effects. At the same time, the banks, have squeezed, squeezed us, in their underwriting standards. And, it's also challenging just to find a bank that wants to do business. It's taking more, it's requiring deposits. There's just a lot more hurdles, and it's slower.
Harder to borrow and all this. Saab, how about
Yeah.
you? What are you
So-
seeing out there?
I agree with everything that Sam just said, and we tend to play in the same game. Company's been around 50 years, and I feel like with all the grays in my beard, I've been around for all of them. But I agree with Kevin. You got to have a long-term look. Interest rates are still historically low, but with the rising costs of everything else, the deals don't tend to pencil out as well, right? And so whether we pump the brakes on a deal or somebody's pumping the brakes for us, right? Whether it's tighter lending criteria, the long-term look is what's going to be necessary. So Sam's going to maybe pause on a deal for 6 months, a year. We may do the same, right? And we'll just kick that can down the road for a little bit. But we obviously see a tremendous amount of growth in the multifamily space. From a lending perspective, right, we all know what happened to regional banks. And the Fed has this kind of implied safety measure for the regionals on saying that we're going to protect the deposits, right? But the deposits are gone, and they don't have that liquidity to, give to guys like us. And so, until the regional banks kind of clean up, I see that this is going to be a little bit of a tighter market for the foreseeable future.
David, you said that you guys are basically pencils down on new construction right now, but you're looking to acquire existing stuff. You want to share a little bit about what your strategy is right now?
Yes, absolutely. So, to talk about the development side for a second, and my firm does development, investment, and management in the multifamily sector. The handful of development sites that we have that are construction ready, we own the land's entitled, we have approved plans, are currently in a holding pattern. Because what the Fed's done with interest rates, when they raised interest rates in order to decrease cost and inflation, we just haven't seen the costs come down as fast or as drastically as necessary to counter the increase in interest rates to make these developments financially justifiable to move forward with at the current environment. And obviously, our company has a theory that we do deals that make sense. And if the numbers don't pencil out and they don't make sense, we'd prefer to hold the land. Now, I've never been in the land banking business, but we've turned into being in that business in some specific instances, which creates a unique situation for housing in general throughout Michigan, because really what we have is decreased supply. And opposite to what occurred in 07, 08, 09, where we had increased supply, we have essentially what I view as the exact inverse of that going on now, where we have decreased supply. And where we sit today, I'm not sure there's a solution for that when you look at costs and interest rates for the supply to come on market to fix this. And I think we're in a little bit of a holding pattern, and we'll see how long it takes to get out of it. I think we'll certainly be in it for certainly the rest of this year and potentially into the first quarter of next year, to where new developments are going to be extremely difficult to be financially justifiable for developers and investors like the people on this panel and some of the people in the audience to move forward with.
Thanks, David. Charles, on the construction side, I'm hearing people talking, these guys talking about projects being pencils down. How's that affecting your business?
Well, I can tell you after all that news, the only thing worse today would be in that submarine. I pray for them, but let's understand, as a contractor, we're always the last one down the totem pole when it comes to bank, the financing, the the developers, an architect gets paid his drawings. The contractor is the one that either you've been working on a project for so long, it's moving forward, or it's in a holding pattern. And we have several projects that are in holding patterns in the Great North. Fortunately, we've been diversified enough to open up offices. We've had offices in Charlotte, North Carolina, which is continually booming, and Florida, which is just an absolute madhouse right now. Part of the things with Florida is, you know, apartments, as they say, rule of thumb is recession-proof, but at the same token, right now in Florida, with the influx of the East Coasters all moving down from the tax, you know, the tax-heavy states, it has created a atmosphere of where the old apartments now, your normal workers in America can't afford to live there anymore. So now all those apartments are being taken up, and now we're building new apartments to facilitate the normal, you know, American people out there. But it also puts pressure on us as a contractor to think outside the box, more of a design assist approach to help developers in situations like this through value engineering to reduce some of the scope without affecting the architectural aesthetics, but yet being able to bring down the costs from, you know, somewhere maybe in the $135 a square foot, maybe in the $150 a square foot if we're doing stick. But then on the coastal, because of the hurricanes and things of that nature, you're still in the 190 to 250 bucks a square foot on the coast, and so there's not a whole lot you can do on the value engineering on that end.
So, Kevin, you know, you talked about being long on multifamily. I think that we're all long on multifamily, but there's this affordable housing shortage, right? So there's a supply shortage. So I guess what I'm getting at is we know that there's going to be good demand for apartments ongoing into the future once we get through this economic transitory period that we're in, because supplies are low and the demand for rental housing is high and it's expensive to buy homes, right? So, I mean, talk to that, or maybe, and also, what are your thoughts on how do we figure out ways to house the folks that can't afford these rental increases that keep going up and up and up, like this missing middle?
That's not a softball question at all, bud.
No, I know.
mean, solve for the housing crisis.
And I'm not
Let
looking
me
for you
figure
to
that one out real quick.
solve. Not to solve, but in your world,
Yeah.
you know, what are you hearing? What are your, do you have any thoughts on it? Because I don't think that it's a problem that's solved right now. I don't think that municipalities have a clear path forward. I think that public-private partnerships will eventually have to happen, but historically, from my experience, it's very difficult to do that. It's, you know, it's time-consuming, and sometimes you're dealing with folks who aren't as entrepreneurial as you would wish. So just, and then an acceptable answer is, I don't know, like, I'm not really
Yeah, no, I
focused
really
on it.
don't know that answer, but like a private-public partnership is probably one of the things that could be looked at. And, you know, easing of restrictions from a municipal level. I mean, to build things, you guys know, it's just a red tape. It's a pain in the ass. Make that easier. And if there's some subsidies for affordable, Fannie tries their best to provide for the cheapest possible rates for affordable housing. But, I mean, quite frankly, they need to do more. And to get a developer to go build something affordable, you really have to entice. And I don't think there's enough enticements out there as evidence that we're not being built to make it happen.
Sab, have you looked at that at all in your world? It's okay if the answer is no.
No, we have. I think, you know, in other markets, obviously, you know, we don't see a tremendous requirement in the suburban market of Metro Detroit for having or providing affordable housing, unless you're in that business and you know how to get all the appropriate relationships, funding, approvals that you need. But, you know, in other markets, you know, you'll have some requirements. So in Northern Virginia, we're doing a deal, right, where, you know, 20% of the units have to be reserved for folks that are, you know, 80% of the AMI. And, you know, poor soul making $160,000 a year gets a discount on a unit from us, right? And so it's not the solution, right? And so, I mean, I think we all know it's coming, right? There's going to be some additional demands put on us as developers to make sure that we're able to provide some housing. Now, what that looks like, none of us know.
Charles, it looked like you wanted to chime in on that.
No, we're seeing a lot of different, opportunities, as you might call it, workplace assistant. I don't know if it's something that the government has to step in to be able to help with people and utilizing private partnership and the government to be able to help facilitate the workplace, and that's happening in Pontiac right now. They're trying to do that in Detroit. We're certainly doing that in Florida, as it might be, but there's still a lot of political things that are going on. We do hurricane disaster relief. We're the first team in Florida that is getting FEMA money from doing hurricane stuff all these years or months later, and there's people still displaced down there. It's insane.
Sam, you besides having your own portfolio, you also third-party manage. You have a thriving third-party property management company. This probably won't be a softball question either, but I think a lot of us in the audience want to have on our mind some of the rental restriction or issues that we've had evicting residents who aren't paying, and some of the proposed legislature here in Michigan, or the follow-through on the current statutes as it relates to evictions. I think that anybody in the audience have had an issue or delay in evicting a resident in one of their units? Don't be shy. Okay, you're all liars, but it's okay. I don't want to get political, but can you talk a little bit about it? Again, I think part of coming to these conferences is hearing about things that we're all dealing with and validating, and I think you're on the front lines of that in a big way, not only for your own portfolio, but probably for others.
Sure. It is certainly more difficult to evict tenants. I know the state is trying to make permanent some of the restrictions that were put on during the pandemic in terms of extending the time period, the notices and stuff like that, and the opportunities for tenants who are not paying to stay there before you can evict them. And furthermore, I mean, I think there's just a movement overall in many communities locally as well as in the state and in other states we're doing business to try to be more, I guess, equitable, in terms of underwriting standards, or, and along that same lines and concerns with opening up housing to everybody. You can't do a criminal background check, in many markets, and you can't use that. Previously, landlords like us, we'd use a third-party system, and you'd look at the criminal background check, and if there's certain misdemeanors or felonies or whatever, you could be denied housing as a result of that. So there's just an overall movement, and communities are taking a stance that that's you can't do that, it's illegal, and the state hasn't gotten involved in all those issues. But generally speaking, it's taking longer and longer to move people out, and as a result, I think we have to look at other ways to be creative. Do we increase security deposits? In many cases, some properties, where the market was, over the last years to reduce security deposits. Now we've tried to increase those to try to help cover the time if somebody, if it takes 120 days instead of 60 days, 45 to 60 days to get people out, be more proactive. We want to work with our residents. Our goal is not to kick people out, but the reality is, especially in a post-COVID world, there were some people that just either couldn't afford it or didn't choose to pay. So, we're seeing that all the way through, and we're also seeing, affordability, as everybody's talking about, a real issue, because we're starting to see delinquencies, not just in a third-party portfolio, but even ours picking up a little bit.
Yeah, I'd agree with all of that and see the same thing. I think that, so we were involved, our companies together, lobbying the state really just to and the state Supreme Court really to pick what the statute is and to ask the lower courts to abide by that. You know, if it used to be 30 days that you could serve an eviction, you know, what happened with COVID was that we extended that time period post-COVID, you know, that maybe it would be 60 to 90 days. But you've got different jurisdictions making different choices kind of haphazardly. And so I think what we were as apartment owners going to them, not necessarily even saying, well, I'd prefer to stick to what it was, which is a shorter period of time, but just tell us what it is so we can plan around it. And that's what a lot of us have been working on. I know a lot of other folks in the audience have. So, all right, I'm going to switch it up a little bit. Maybe we'll go to something that feels a little bit more positive. I'm not sure. Kevin, like, what are you? I'm going to pull off the card, right? What are you excited about right now as it relates to multifamily, or what are you working on that's exciting?
Well, to stay positive, look, I'm excited that all the metrics that are working in the favor of the multifamily owners right now. I mean, things are really smooth sailing in terms of fundamentals, and so, you know, to be able to go out and kick tires and look at deals in other markets, I'm excited to look at different deals. But on the flip side, you know, selfishly as an owner, I'm a little excited to see if there's some of these deals go for sale on discount, because there's going to be some things happening in the marketplace that, you know, look, as a debt guy, I'm talking to borrowers every day, and it's hard to get somebody to take an interest rate in today's environment. I get it. It hurts. But I am also telling people, like, look, 12 months from now, I can't tell you your values are going to be the same where they are today. There's a very good chance values, whether it be in multifamily, for sure office, I can't say the same for industrial because that's just a whole different breed. But most asset classes, there hasn't been any pain. And so appraisers look back and they use comps and everything was great, you know, butterflies, rainbows, and unicorns the last 2 years. And so comps are good. Look back and values hold. When a couple of things happen and there's some forced sales, maybe a liquidation, maybe a foreclosure, 2,300 units just got foreclosed on in Houston.
So this was supposed to be positive.
I know.
I'm trying. But that's what I'm excited about personally.
Well, you're
Just
excited
like
about potential opportunity.
potential
You
opportunities.
don't wish hardship on
No.
anyone, nor
No,
do
but
I.
look, as a buyer,
But we'd
and
like
as
to
a-
see some blood in the water. Like, where is it?
there has to be at some point. Unless there's equity that just saves the day, which I'm excited to see if that happens.
All right.
I don't know.
David, what are you excited about?
Well, I think, thank you, Kevin. I'm excited that we're not in office.
Yes. Yeah. If there's always something to be grateful for, right?
Yeah. No, I think something for a lot of the people on this panel and people in this room to be excited about, which hasn't been mentioned, is that if you currently own a rental property or an apartment building, you made the right choices, meaning you didn't get into some sort of crazy floating debt or, you know, interest only 2-year expiration type loan, and you did the right things. I think you're going to be set up for a lot of years of very good cash flow. Now, you may not have a great opportunity to refinance that property in the next 24 months and take cash out. You may not be able to sell it for the exact amount you hoped you might be able to sell it for at a 4 cap. But the purpose that you bought that building was to collect rent and make money. I think that model is going to be extremely fruitful over the next 36 months, simply because there's no new supply coming on the market that's going to be able to compete with you. And the supply that does come on the market, there's going to be zero chance they're going to be able to match you on price point, because the cost that they built for, they're going to have to achieve such high rents that you'll be able to undercut them on pricing. So the fundamentals of people that have done the right thing, you know, got locked rates, run a clean business, do the credit checks, fix stuff up for their tenants and retain their tenants, are going to have a lot of success, I believe.
Thanks, David. Well said. Charles, how about you? What are you excited about?
I'm excited. I'm in other states. I can't tell you that right now. That's part of our vision at the company. We've been when things were tough, we opened up offices in the Carolinas some 30 years ago. Texas, it's like another country. They print their own money down there. You might have something that foreclosed in Houston, but certainly right now in Dallas, the growth is just, you know, ridiculous. Same with Florida, same with the Carolinas. You know, the people that got, you know, sick of hurricanes decided they wanted to move back to New Hampshire or wherever it might be. They didn't go all the way back. They moved halfway back. They're called halfbacks, and they're in the Carolinas. So being excited in this world is trying to stay focused and your visions focus and not forget where you came from. The simple fact is Detroit is our home, but at the same token, there's a lot of other Detroit-based developers, owners that see the future as well, where the money is at to be made in those markets, particularly if you're in multifamily and it's just growing like pancakes down there. Same thing with industrial as well, which we're not on that panel, but that's what I'm excited about.
Thanks, Charles. Saab, you excited about anything?
Yeah, I mean, David just tipped me off to some excitement when we built a building in Royal Oak that I thought at the time was super expensive, but now all the guys building down the street are so much more expensive. So I guess cash flow is coming. And I agree with Charles. You know, like diversification is always key, right? I mean, in your product type, in the markets that you're in, even if you're locally focused, right? Like try to diversify yourself because you don't want to be stuck with one set of product and asset type that, you know, just takes it to the chin, you know, for months on end. From a developer perspective, I think what we're really excited about is just the creativity of new product. You know, work from home, we don't know where that stands, right? But like how we build the product to you know, fit this new generation of work and life balance is fun to work on because, you know, in the past, a lot of the product that you put out there was a little bit cookie cutter, right? And there's some great architects out there. There's a couple of good guys in the back corner there, Jeff and Jason, that know what they're doing. And I mean, it's just fun, right? Because you're getting out there with a piece of paper and dreaming something up.
Cool, Sam?
Well, obviously the markets have gotten a little bit jolted, but I still think the fundamentals are good overall. Certainly on the operation side of stabilized portfolio, but you know, on the development side, you know, one of the, I guess, positive things, you know, coming out of COVID was that, hey, it's suburban, and we're a suburban developer, you know, mostly. The suburban, you know, markets are not dead, right? Some people are going to work, you know, Sal brought up an interesting point, hybrid work. I mean, you know, people are going to live, and it addresses affordability too. People are going to choose to live in suburban markets and may choose to go to the city. So it's not just suburban markets going to die, cities are going to be just thriving. I think it's going to be a mix. So there's a lot of opportunities, I think, to look at markets in a different way that you looked before. And I think the cities have gotten a little bit of a reality check too. You know, a lot of their egos were very strong with all the construction, but I think they realize, you know, you're going to need density to make things work. You have to think out of the box. So maybe, you know, they got to relook at zoning and the standards and stuff like that. So I'm really excited. You know, we're seeing a little bit of a shift on that in talking to some communities. And technology, I mean, there's a lot of new technologies in construction in terms of design, how you roll out operations. So, you know, there's always opportunities to look at that on your existing portfolio, and then how do you design new projects. You know, inflation helped push that along, as well as just overall changes. So, and I frankly think, you know, a little bit of slowdown is not a bad thing because you can catch your breath. You can maybe make less mistakes, and you know, the companies that, you know, have been around, you know, like us, you know, maybe are able to, you know, do things that, you know, we weren't able to do a couple of years ago because it was just the highest bidder, you know, just stepped up.
You bring up a great point, which is what I was saying in the networking time, which is, you know, I'm a deal guy. I like growth. I like buying. So, what's exciting today, right? Well, you know, on the operation side of our business, you know, when things slow down or become more expensive, you know, a spotlight goes to inefficiencies, right? So we had an opportunity to focus on our platform in 2020 when we took a pause because COVID happened, and now right now, you know, to get better with the processes, to get better with efficiencies with the team and to build that platform for when the opportunities do come, that we're fortified and ready to take the business to the next level, which I think is a blessing. And when we're busy, we're not necessarily looking at the operation all the time or all too closely. At least I'm not. So we have just under 10 minutes, and I want to save a little bit of time for Q&A. So I wanted to just take the temperature of the room. Is there anybody out there that has a question they'd like to ask anybody on the panel or the panel in general? Yeah.
So my question is really for Saab and for Sam. In terms of developed to cap rates today in multifamily, let's talk about a suburban development of 150 to 200 units. What is your target developed to cap rate based on today's values? And then the second part of that question is, in terms of spread, where would you like to be in construction cost versus stabilized value once we identify what that developed to cap rate is to justify the risk of a new multifamily development?
So I don't think that everybody in the room heard him. So there's two questions. One was, what are we trying to develop to? What kind of cap rate are we trying to develop to, I think? And the second was having to do with spread, right? From the construction margin to that cap rate. So let's hear your secret sauce.
I'm glad you're taking this one first.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough, right? I think I wish I had a deal to share that I could say, this is what we did, right? This is where it's going to end up. But, it's kind of crazy today. I think historically, we were probably a bit more, I guess, conservative or aggressive, the way you want to look at it, right? I think we always needed 150 to 200 bips between going in and going out, right? And that made us comfortable in our deals. I mean, there's, I think before, like, Sam and I even see a penny from the development we do, we're 7 years into a deal, right? And so, you got to make sure that the fundamentals are right. Today is hard, right? Because that build to cap, I don't know. I can't really speak to a build to cap rate today, right? It's too hard to define.
He's not lying either, because I think the first thing you said on our prep call was when you see somebody else building, you're saying to them, how are you building, right? Like, how are you getting it done for that price? All right, Sam, sorry.
Well, obviously it's market by market and state by state. But that the tricky part is, what are values today? What's the cap rate today? Which, there's been very little trades going on, and the previous trades were just, really driven by low interest rates before. But having said that, I mean, the goal is similar to what Saab said. If we were pretty much 1.5 basis points over whatever the current spread of the cap rate would be. As sort of a rule of thumb, I mean, a lot dictated on financing too. We sometimes did HUD deals where you had a permanent mortgage, and we looked at just the spread on cash flow. But to just narrow down on your question today, I mean, we're looking at some projects in the Metro Detroit area, and we're trying to underwrite. The problem is, even in Metro Detroit, there hasn't been a lot of sales of brand new A cap rate properties, and when you look at a price per unit, it's so hard. But we would have been underwriting to probably a 6 and trying to develop to a 7-ish. Now I could tell you straight on, the numbers haven't looked like that in the last few years, and that's been the problem. And Saab and I have the benefit of really taking a very long-term approach on this, so that helps do that. But that takes a lot more capital, and it takes a lot more patience. And so you're going to see development slow down because it's just going to be hard to make those numbers work. But like in Florida, we're working on deals right now, and the cap rate is probably in the 4s. So if we can get to like a 5.5 or 6, well, that's great. But the problem here is versus there or in North Carolina or some of these other booming markets, there aren't trades on a per unit basis that are anywhere near that. So when we're looking at developing projects right now, and they're in the 300,000 plus unit even for a garden, and if you're going to do a mid-rise or something like that, you're even more. And we haven't had anything sell for that, and that's really the struggle we're trying to right now, is just well, what is it going to be worth? Regardless of cap rate, what is it ultimately worth?
Just sharing what, feeding off what Sam says, I mean, in some of the growth markets, the growth will save you, right? So even if you're building at something that's outrageous today, right, you just hope that, a few years down the road, that growth will save you. So you got to be cautious, right? I mean, obviously we don't have, we have more incremental growth in Metro Detroit as opposed to robust, multiple type of growth. And you can make those deals make sense. And so looking at the rates here, I never know anybody's costs in town, right? But you always hear somebody says that, like, they're building these units and they're building them for $225 a door, $250 a door, and I heard a pretty ridiculous one at $800 a door recently, right?
Where's that one at?
But those types of things, is it a risk? Probably, but in some cases, maybe it's also the equity that's driving the deal, right? And so if you see that the equity will make more in the deal that you're doing, despite, some of the return metrics in place versus being in a bank or something else, some of those deals happen.
Well, the biggest issue I think that we're all facing, right, is that the interest rates are kind of a moving target right now. I've been thinking that until the Fed says we're done, not maybe we're paused, not maybe there'll be more, but we're donezo, right? Then the market can settle in. Then we can all say, okay, this is where we're going to be for a while. But how do you buy on any kind of future cap rate if you don't know where it's going to be or what your debt is going to look like, right? Especially when you're still dealing with, on construction, on floats, right? Something that's not fixed unless you can swap or whatever. Yeah. Another question?
Now the markets we have a presence, do you see any growth in the build-to-rent product?
Build to rent meaning like single family build to rent?
It's cluster housing, thinking Redwood apartment homes, they're a big player in Michigan.
Yeah, we do a decent amount of that product type. We're talking about individual entries, reducing common area, reducing hallways. That adds to, a different type of renter, maybe a family renter, and I think that there's a really good place for that. We develop a lot of townhome product, which has efficiencies on the management side and then also lends itself well for multiple different types of renters. We see a lot of roommate situations with young professionals. We see some families. We see young couples. So I think that product type can be more flexible than maybe meets the eye and is very desired today. I think pre-COVID, there was this micro unit kind of fad a little bit, which I never really understood why I'd want to live in a smaller home necessarily. And I think that, we're back to, a more fundamental housing choice for people where they want larger living spaces to entertain at home, outdoor areas that they can at least, get to easily from their living spaces, whether it be a patio, a deck, which lends itself to the single family or townhouse rental model.
In the construction end on that, you're starting to see some of these workplace assist programs that different communities are trying to get for affordable homes, and you're seeing more of a panelized approach to that versus your stick-built, where you're panelized. They're panelized off-site and warehouse, delivered to a project, and then they're put together like a puzzle. And we're starting to see some costs dip down, although you don't know with the latest forest fires that occurred in Canada how that's going to eventually come out. When the COVID hit, all of a sudden it was like the COVID affected the entire country and the world, but how did it affect the trees? Well, it didn't affect them at all. All of a sudden the lumber yards decided it was time to raise the lumber prices, all right? Didn't affect the trees. Now the trees are being affected, so what's that going to affect for us? So
I think that there is strong demand for that in certain markets, but a lot of that was fueled with the delay in construction for new homes.
And low interest rates.
And low interest rates, but many people are priced out, so affordability, that is a good model. I'm a little leery about investing too heavily on that because I think over time, the operational costs of that type of community, the maintenance and all that is not as feasible as everybody thinks.
Coming from a guy who did 3,000 single-family homes, it's a pain in the you-know-where. Anyway, with that, I think we're out of time. I want to thank the panelists. Thank you for your insight. Let's give them a round of applause, please.